Blog Talk Radio.
Welcome to the Institute for Personal Development, Kriya Yoga Ashram, where total consciousness is the new frontier.
Kriya Yoga is union of the individual with the divine. Join us as we explore the practices to initiate this process.
Good morning. Welcome to the Voice of Yoga. Let's Talk Consciousness. I am your hostess, Lisa Winton, and with me is Kenny Toy, also known as Swami Jayananda, founder of the Institute for Personal Development, located here in Hampton, New Hampshire. Good morning, Swami. Thank you for being here today. How are you?
Good morning. I'm doing pretty good today. How about you?
I'm doing pretty good today. Thanks for asking. And we want to thank you, listeners, for tuning in. Today in the Voice of Yoga, we will be talking about uncovering the secret to life. In this show, they will explore the possibilities found in the truth of being. We will discuss the benefits found in union with the divine by making spirit cause, by explaining the role of the causal spiritual body. We will be revisiting the purpose of Pratyahara, sense withdrawal, in changing how to think. Welcome to the Voice of Yoga. We are talking consciousness. Join the Kriya Yoga Spiritual Advance to get the light in your soul and experience true senseless optimism. So, Swami, it sounds like we have a lot on our plate today, so let's talk about the very first part of our summary where it says uncovering the secret to life. So do you want to clue us in as to what that might be?
Yeah, I think the secret to life has always been explained to us in Scripture. Most of the scriptures that you read, they'll pretty much drill down to the simple fact that they're saying, put God first. And if you take it even further, put God first, last, and always. And you'll be complying with the secret to life as far as I'm concerned. But I think what we want to try and do, and especially when we're talking here about breaking the code, is what exactly is God? Because it's a real simple instruction. Put God first. But what does that mean? And what does that look like when I'm actually doing it?
I was going to ask you that same question, actually. What does it look like when we put God first?
Yeah, for me, a big part of what I've been learning and practicing now is the two key words there is God, and the second one is first. That what does it look like when I put this word in its position of importance in my value system? What is the most important thing to me? And one of the things that I've always worked with was in Kriya Yoga, we try and make a clear distinction between needs, wants, and purpose. And your number one need is the life force and the presence of this indestructible principle is really the most important thing, because we can live weeks without food, we can live days without water, we can live minutes without air, but we can't live a millisecond without this life force. And so for a number of years I thought that you were pretty safe if you were using breath, which is your number two life-sustaining force. But even breath doesn't get you closer to the fact that you really have to put God, you have to put this life force in its position of importance, because it changes everything. When this sustaining infinite is in its rightful position of importance in your consciousness, then it changes everything, because it changes your identity. You move from a physical body, a mortal being, to a spiritual, eternal, immortal being.
Well, we also said that we were going to explore the possibilities found in the truth of being. But before we talk about the possibilities, let's just drill down that phrase, truth of being. What exactly does that mean?
Yeah, the whole concept of the truth, what is the truth of our being is that we are eternal spiritual beings, that creation is spiritual. For us to know that puts everything that we think we know on the back burner. And I love what that Josh Billings had said. It's not all the things we don't know. It's all the things we think we know that just ain't so. And so for me, it's only been about a year and a half now that I'm really starting to understand what Mary Baker Eddy meant when she said that life is purely spiritual and that matter isn't real. And to have a belief in matter is what really kind of puts us in this tailspin.
So if we were to explore the possibilities that are found in the truth of being, what does that look like?
Well, the first thing that starts to happen is you lose your identity from identifying with what is visible and tangible, and then you move away from what is invisible but tangible, and you start to align yourself with what is invisible and intangible. It's kind of 180 degrees from the way that we're socialized. We're socialized, we think that seeing is believing, kind of a mentality. And we're starting to find that that's not the truth of our being. That the truth is that what is invisible and intangible is really the substance of creation. It is what is genuine and real and true. And what is visible is really a concept. And it's a concept of what is invisible and intangible. And I think with the principle of manifestation, we have, since the inception of Institute for Personal Development, have been able to explain why that is the way it is, because nothing manifests whole. But what we haven't really established is, like what we talked about in the opening, the role of the causal spiritual body. Because in yoga physiology, we use a three-body system. We have a physical body, we have an astral mental body, and then there's this causal spiritual body. And our preoccupation and emphasis on the physical body really interferes with our ability to unlock the true potential of our being, because the physical body is not real. The physical body is just a reflection. And the unfortunate thing is most of us, it is the reflection of the world mind. It's not even the reflection of divine mind.
And it's that reflection that we think is real, and so that's what we have to disassociate from. Is that correct?
Exactly. And the analogy that I've been using, it's kind of like you look at yourself in the mirror and your face is dirty, and you start washing the mirror. And you can't figure out why your face isn't getting clean. And that's primarily the way we approach our lives. We're trying to do things from a physical sense of perception and can't figure out why we're not getting good results.
So in that case, once we come to that realization that we're not getting results, then this is where changing how we think comes into play?
Exactly. Because we're accustomed to thinking with our five senses. we pretty much rely on a sense level logic that we use. What we're starting to find is that this is what we talked about in the opening, is the purpose of Pratyahara in yoga, sense withdrawal. You really have to move away from human thinking with our five sense mind and start to get a hold of this concept of divine knowing the truth of our being. And the truth of our being is that creation is perfect, harmonious, whole, peaceful, and well. But what we're looking at and what we think we're living out from is not the truth of our being. We are in the concept of that truth.
Well, that might be something that we can all be working towards, is changing how we think. So if we were to do that, what would be like the first step for somebody to undertake this purpose of Pratyahara, changing how we think? What would be the first thing you think that we should be doing?
Well, what I've started to do is I start to use the testimony of my senses to give me a better understanding of what is taking place in my consciousness. Because what is appearing in your five senses is a direct result of what it is that we're holding in our consciousness. Because just like we have been saying all along, how we think is what we become. That formula has not changed. But if we are thinking with the lower mind, living out from instinct, appetite, preservation, and survival, we are still attached to duality. And so we find that we are very ineffectual based on this new standard that we're trying to uphold. If we are living out from human intelligence, perception, reason, memory, intuition, then we are still drawing from duality, and we have a belief in two powers, and we are under the law of karma. And even when we have reached what is referred to as the higher mind, which is basically just the world mind, the collective consciousness, that it gives you a more inclusive point of identification. It gives you a broader sense of identity, and you transcend the limits of just seeing yourself as separate, but you are still drawing from the law of karma. You still have a belief in two powers. So it's not really until we start to understand the role of the causal spiritual body that we start to understand that divine mind does not think from a divided consciousness. Divine mind is absolute, and it thinks in terms of wholeness, unity, where everything is one and indivisible. Now, once you make your conscious mind an avenue of awareness for the presence of this truth, then you really stop thinking humanly. That what we call judgment, forming opinions and forming thoughts and creating concepts and theories and beliefs, that's all part of a limited perception. But as we start to forsake that human thinking and we make our conscious mind an avenue of awareness for the presence of this divine mind, which doesn't even report in our five sense mind, but now we're thinking differently, and really differently than what most of us are doing.
Well, I think this is a good place to pause to hear a word from our sponsors. So listeners, we'll be back with you in just a few moments. Kriya Yoga Theory 1. Human Development and the 8 Essential Stages of Kriya Yoga. This program is a comprehensive course that will help you get your arms around the science of Kriya Yoga. It provides a clear understanding of the goals and objectives behind yoga, along with the physics of spirituality. It includes the practices, supportive concepts of Kriya Yoga, and the process in human development, apotheosis, the process of the human becoming divine. A complete guide on how to become a human in the adult state. Get the light in your soul and experience the simplicity and joy of union with the divine. This course is available in live classes at the ashram or online with 8 videos or 4 CDs. Visit our website, www.ipdtransform.com, for more information. Welcome back. For those of you just joining us, you're listening to The Voice of Yoga, and we are talking consciousness. So, Swami, I'd actually like to get back to the summary of our program, and I actually want to start with the title of the program, which is called Breaking the Code with the Truth. So I wanted to ask you a few things. What is the code, and how are we going to break it?
Yeah, I think the code that we're talking about here is that we don't realize that we are being hypnotized by the world mind, that we're really not individualized in the way that we think we are, and primarily the way that you judge whether you're hypnotized or not is based on what it is that you believe in. Because if you have a belief in 2 powers, then you are hypnotized. If you believe in good and evil, in right and wrong, that you do not understand what the Bible is talking about when it says to judge righteously. But if you understand the truth, which is that God is all, that there is only one power in this universe, there is only one life, and it is absolute goodness, then that will break the hypnotism of the belief in 2 powers.
And I'd also like to drill down a little bit more about discussing the benefits found in union with the divine by making spirit cause. And by explaining the role of the causal spiritual body, I know you have already explained that, but let's talk about now benefits, because I think as humans, we want to know, well, what's in it for us? What are the benefits found in union with the divine by making spirit cause?
Yeah, see, most of us today, we come from a mentality where we're starting to accept that thought has effect on reality. And of course, belief in that gives that thought the power of intention. But what we haven't figured out is that if we are thinking, and even with positive thinking, and we are affecting the outcome of our external experience, that good thinking builds it up and wrong thinking breaks it down, then you're kind of in this ongoing struggle that you're constantly changing finite bad to finite good, which now becomes finite bad, and that is being hypnotized. Now, to rise above that, we really have to understand how things are really working. That if we think with divine mind, the causal spiritual body becomes cause, not the astral mental aspect. Not the astral mental body is cause, because that is dualistic. And what you're putting out is what you're getting back. So if you're living under the law of karma, then it is constant reciprocity. But if you can rise above the law of karma with the belief in one power, the understanding that spirit is cause, and if spirit is whole, complete, perfect, harmonious, and spirit is eternal, unchanging, then wouldn't it make sense that that would be the thing that you would want to think out from, that you would want to be thinking from that level of consciousness as opposed to the lower levels which perpetuate the cycle of death and rebirth?
Well, that sounds pretty powerful when you put it that way. But I want to get to some of your other notes that you have here, and let's talk about what we mean by spiritual identity. I'm wondering if maybe you could give us some thoughts about that.
As we have been saying all along, it's what we desire, what it is that we are attracted to that really is going to set the landscape for our identity. So as we are saying, if we are attracted to things that are visible and tangible, we will be of a material identity. We will be more of an animal type nature. If we are attracted to the things that are invisible but tangible, thoughts and mental activity in general, then we will be of a human identity. And of course, we will still have all of the limitations of a material, mortal, human existence. But if we are attracted to what is invisible and intangible, then that's what lifts us out of duality. And now we have a belief in the one power, and that's what starts to outpicture the divine law of life, which is absolute goodness, peace, love, absolute love, harmony. And so whatever it is that we are attracted to, whatever it is that we desire, is going to determine who we think we are.
So we have to, in practice or in daily life, we have to always have this concept of God in our direct consciousness all of the time. And that should be where we're operating from, and not from this material world that we have accepted as life.
Exactly. And that's why I use that analogy of desire, whatever it is we desire. Because most of us are craving a cup of coffee. We're craving a phone call. We're craving a text. We're craving. And these are all indicators that we are hypnotized. Now, if you change that and you are craving absolute nothing, then you're more in sync with this divine law.
Swami, I see in your notes that you have some words by Herb Fitch that you would like to talk about. Would you like to take that time right now and talk about it?
Yeah, this is something from Herb Fitch where he's talking about the revelation of St. John. And I think he really kind of uncovers the code, the way that we are hypnotized and the way that we think or the way that we don't think right. And he says here, if you know that your child is sick, but God doesn't know it, you will have to come to that consciousness which agrees that your child cannot be sick. Now, that might seem absurd to you. It might have even seemed absurd to you 20 chapters ago, which is as he's going through the revelation of St. John. And then he continues here. Now you know that God, being too pure to behold iniquity, the Son of God is too pure to behold iniquity, and you, in declaring iniquity present, are declaring you are not the Son of God. How strange that we would cut off our own kingdom through ignorance. For the moment, you see imperfection in this world. You are declaring that you see with eyes not like God sees. not like Christ sees. And you have just made a second life for yourself. And where are you? You are in a dream. There is no second life. The only life there is God. How can you see evil? How can you experience evil except in a second life? And now the feast says, "Come sup with me." If you want the truth, here it is. But first, renounce the belief in a second life. Renounce the belief in even the possibility of error. Oh, you say, I can't do it. My child is really sick. Fine. You can reincarnate and start all over again. The Father is perfectly willing for all those who are not ready to enter the kingdom of God to take as much time at the moment as they wish. We are all given an opportunity to wallow in our mortality as long as we wish. He continues here and he says, let's suppose I change my song. Father, my child appears to be sick. My doctor says my child is sick, and my child's temperature is high, and the poor little dear is pale and weak. But I'm sure that if you knew about this, something would be done, and you're not doing a thing. I'm therefore sure you know nothing about this, and I am therefore prepared to say that whoever knows something about this is under the impression that they know more than God. They must be wrong. I can declare, truthfully, that every medical diagnosis ever made since the world began is a declaration of knowing more than God. And it must be wrong for the simple reason that God is all and God is perfect. What is there then that is imperfect? That consciousness which is disconnected from God, which does not know the Father aright. That's a pretty powerful statement right there.
Yeah, that whole passage is just loaded with some pretty powerful information. So basically, anything that we see that is sickness or what I would say not harmonious is just validation that we do not know God aright. We are not putting God in our consciousness.
Yeah, that's 100% right, that we do not know God aright. And that's what we talked about in the very beginning of this show, that if we knew God aright, that we would be experiencing the perfection of our own being.
So if you take that example of the child that appears to be sick, so what is a parent to do? Because their eyes are telling them something. I realize in the passage they say that they're not seeing with God's eyes. So how do they see with God's eyes? How do they see that child not being sick?
Yeah, that's what we're talking about, that we must know the truth. We must start forsaking human thinking for divine knowing. And that becomes a practice just like anything else. And practice makes perfect only when practice is perfect. So you really have to start getting a sense for this invisible, intangible presence, and then realizing that it holds the template for perfect creation. And if you're still finding defects in your outside world, the adjustment has to be made that we still don't know God aright.
Well, all right. Well, that should wrap up our program for today. So listeners, be sure you can visit our website, www.ipdtransform.com. And again, there's lots of tools on the website for your continued learning experiences. And don't forget, from that website, you can access the free webinars that Swami does every Wednesday at noon, and also Facebook Live Wednesdays at 5. So Swami, any other final thoughts about today's program?
Well, I would like to encourage everybody to start knowing the truth that actually makes us free from this law of karma that we're all kind of struggling to get out from underneath the hypnotism of. And with that, I'll wish everybody a good day. Namaste.
Thank you for listening to our program, The Voice of Yoga. This is Lisa Winton, along with Swami Jayananda, signing off. Have a wonderful Kriya Yoga kind of day. Namaste.